At Verizon, anyone can trade in their old phone for a new one on us with Unlimited Ultimate, which means everyone in your family could get a new phone and stay on your family plan, keeping you close.
Hey, Mom, you seen my toothbrush?
Yeah, I'm almost done with it.
Oh, maybe too close. Trade-in and additional terms apply. See Verizon.com for details.
Welcome to the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Trish.
And this is our podcast. We talk about wrestling news and various topics from different promotions, primarily AEW, but also New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWE, and topics from around the wrestling world. Whatever we find interesting, and we hope you will too. We are a proud member of the Social Suplex Podcast Network, and you can find our content on our podcast feed, the Social Suplex Podcast feed, as well as on Twitter and YouTube. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and rate our podcast. We also have a store at Chopped Tees, so if you would like to support us or just own some nice warm hoodies or other quality merch, please consider taking a look at chopped-tees.com/collections/social suplex network. One day.
Backslash.
Ugh, I got to work on my, what are those exercises that people do? Anyway. Today is Sunday, January 19th, 2025, and Trish and I have been pondering the topic of this podcast since the last 2 weeks or so of discourse around AEW and its current main event scene, the wrestlers it's choosing to push and not push, the championship holders, the direction in which the whole situation is going, has been the topic of a lot of conversation across the internet wrestling community. And as always, we have some thoughts. So Trish, we're going to kick things off with kind of a recap of sort of the general position of a lot of the programs that are currently going on at AEW. Tunnel Talk is off this week. They did not have a podcast release today, which bummed us both out very much. We were sort of looking forward to that. So we're going to take a little page from their book, obviously with permission, and sort of recap the different feuds, etc., that are currently going on and talk about the strengths and weaknesses of these particular programs. Trish, happy Sunday.
Is it permission if we only got 1/3 of it?
She's our boss, so I feel like
okay, yeah, no,
we got the most permission.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
At least I was kind of hoping that after Wrestle Dynasty and Japan Adventures that I'd just come in and talk about like Japanese train tones at like every station, or just or I don't know, like not sound like I'm underwater, but one out of these two things is not bad. It's been a very long week, and
it's been a very long week.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that sometimes the TV ends up matching up with some of the things being discussed, and this was kind of the perfect week for that. So I thought there was loads of things across the TV that highlighted some of the main issues and the reason why both fans and talent, let's be honest, have been kind of disgruntled this week. Where do you want to start? This is our probably least planned episode ever because we've just scrambled notes together on various topics. Yeah.
So I guess we should probably talk about Dynamite as an overall from last Wednesday, as a show that I thought had a lot of downs and not a lot of ups, I guess would be the best way to describe it. I don't know if you felt similarly. I was not, I think that there's a time sometimes where fans have a tendency towards hyperbole. I have never engaged in hyperbole in my life, so I, am sympathetic. But, and I think sometimes people are like, this was the best episode of Dynamite ever. This was the worst episode of Dynamite ever. I thought it had some good things in it, but there were some big flaws there that I thought were sort of surprising. And one of the things that I was kind of really surprised by was the quality of the matches, which, with a couple of exceptions, I was kind of underwhelmed by, and it sort of made me think back to the days where one of the big complaints you used to get about Dynamite was how good the matches were. Remember some of that terrible bad faith criticism? Like, this is too good for network television. And I was kind of like, geez, after sitting through Hook versus Christian Cage, I was like, God, I long for those days. Those were great days. What was your overall impression of Dynamite as a show, like, from Wednesday?
Normally we say kind of in a vacuum something was good.
Right.
Well, I didn't find this in a vacuum. And I think a lot of this will depend on how you feel about the Kenny Omega angle.
Yep.
And how you feel about the main event. So I think Kenny's probably the best place to start because
I think that's a good choice. I think that's a good choice. Let's go with that.
Yeah, and what was really interesting to me was that because of everything that happened last weekend, they flipped all their attention to Kenny.
Yes, on social. So I think what Trish is referring to is the social media, the advertising. Everything that you saw was sort of Kenny forward. It was like Kenny, and then also Moxley will be there, which I thought was genuinely fascinating. And like you said, was a clear switch like that happened pretty much from Sunday into Monday.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean they're going to change anything going forward. Let's be honest, okay?
No.
Because they did, if you remember, they did exactly the same thing around Blood and Guts last time.
Yes,
They had that huge amount of feedback around Swerve and Hangman, and then they were like, oh, we'll flip everything on the Monday. But I thought it was a really interesting start because what confused me, so obviously we're out in Japan. We see Wrestle Dynasty. We see that Kenny Omega and that character and that real kind of god of pro wrestling, yeah? And then he cuts that promo where he's basically like, I'm bringing this character back with me. And that was kind of the opposite of what happened at World's End, whereas at World's End, you know, that he came out and they were like, and you had Tony Schiavone saying, you know, we don't know how his health is, we don't know how he's ready.
Right.
And that was kind of like, and then like Excalibur going, well, he's wrestling in like 5 days. Mm-hmm. And then we had this continuation of that. So we had that promo where he says, I'm going to bring this back and AEW needs to be ready for me. And then he comes back and he goes back to that previous thing. So you had these 2 different ideologies, these 2 different storylines that are kind of happening at the same time. And it's like, what happened in those 4 days? What happened in that time from when he, you know, from Dynasty where he cuts that promo after that's on AEW social media and when he cuts that promo on Dynamite last week? And you can feel that this week as well, because you're doing this story. You know, he's trying to do this thing of, you know, my body's not ready, and that's why, you know, Cage is getting so much offense. And then you've got Don Callis screaming over the top, like, he's better than ever. And you're like, who's putting this together? Like, what is the issue here? And I think it was difficult, because I don't know about you, but I do agree with the thing. I mean, Rich Latta spoke about it on Nation Radio. I don't think this time around, this is the Kenny Omega that everybody wants.
I agree with you on this. And I want to be conscious, and this was kind of the thing I was sort of saying to myself as I'm like watching it and I'm responding to it. I want to be conscious of the fact that this is Act 1, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's Act 1. You know, we talk about like, don't evaluate programs until they're over and blah, blah. At the same time, I was somewhat surprised. Like, the first thing I thought of when watching the match was how quickly they went to basically a heat segment for Cage, where Kenny is taking a lot of offense and looking hurt and all this other stuff. And I was kind of disappointed by that, because it seemed, like you said, to be the complete opposite of what we had been told was going to happen in that promo, right? And I like Brian Cage. I don't see any reason why Kenny could not have had a dominant win over Brian Cage. Like, I'm not sure what the positive is to him. And I don't even like, I understand sometimes people like, you know, they can't go 50-50 or blah, 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 whatever. I don't always have an issue with that. But I felt like in this particular instance, I was like, why isn't Kenny just kicking his fucking ass, right? Like, more like what he did with Kid. Like, the Kid match was competitive, but Kenny was clearly in control for almost the entire thing. And this was not the case for this match. And I was like, Kenny looks incredible. Like, I kept looking at him being like, the guy looks fucking amazing. I don't know that I believe that he's not capable of just destroying Brian Cage at any moment. So why am I not seeing that?
And the thing is that they used the footage from Wrestle Dynasty on their TV earlier in the show last week. So it's like, you are running 2 angles here at the same time. And I can see the benefit of them in some ways to that, right? Because if you have this really, really strong babyface coming back in, straight away people are going to want him with Jon Moxley. And that's not what they want to do.
No.
You know, you can see that they want to do the team, and then they want to, you know, it's not really a secret, is it? You know, they're going to aim him at Takeshita, who needs to drop that belt, which I'll talk about later. And then they want to, you know, do the Okada match at All In. That's the direction they want for Kenny Omega. They do not want him near Jon Moxley.
No.
And there's this thing that's been happening again and again and again since September, where if there's anything that feels like a threat, and this is how people in AEW feel, then they will siphon it off. They will put it somewhere else.
Right.
They will get it out the way. And that is exactly what's happening here. He is his own little universe, his own little silo. And, this is probably the biggest thing that's happened in the last however many months. And I know there's a question. I've got to go all the way down now. God, I didn't structure this very well this week. I'm very bad at structure.
Well, both of us were.
Yeah, but we got a question from, his name's Puny God on Discord. I'm just going to call him Loki now because Loki's cooler. And he said, can you elaborate on this pod about what Rich mentioned on One Nation Radio about there being more communication and that things should happen and work together? And this is kind of a perfect example of that. So they are putting Kenny in a silo. They do not want him to interact with like the Moxley stuff or anything like that. And the way that they do it is the way that they book it. So, Kenny will be in his story with Ospreay and Takeshita and that world. Moxley will be in his world with, Tony and RJ City and whatever they're doing. And the idea is that you don't allow them to interact and then you can do these stories outright. But if you make Kenny a strong babyface from the start, that threat's going to come and that pressure's going to come from elsewhere. So you kind of undercut it. But I don't think that's the right thing this time. People have been crying for this babyface run. We did a whole segment on this.
Right.
I went nuts about it. It's like, I don't care whose responsibility this is. I don't care if this is around Kenny, Tony, or both, or whoever.
Right.
Like, I don't give a shit. Like, you have this guy, you see what he did at the Dome. Don't be silly and not think that that's a political play by him either, because of course it is.
Of course it is.
He has shown you who he is, and he's shown the fan base who he is. So now they want that guy. They don't want this guy. And maybe we'll get to that guy in a few months, but maybe we won't. But it's like, they want it now. They need it now. So it's like, stop it. I don't care. Like, I get what you're doing and that sort of thing, but you need to get there quick. Because you don't lose that momentum that you got from the stuff at the Tokyo Dome. Don't try and underplay it because you want something else that isn't working long term to work. Like, this is that pivot thing. But it's like, you've got to wake up on this one. You've got to realize he's Kenny Omega. You have to make him Kenny Omega. We talked about this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you can replay a story from 2022 just because everything got off the rails there. So, yeah, I'm very much on the fence of, I get the story that he's telling. I don't think it's the one we were on. And I think when you have so much heat up and down the card.
There's so much fucking heat on these. Oh my God.
So you need them strong baby faces. And if they're not going to be in your title program because you're doing what you are there, then they need to be elsewhere. So if you do want him in his little silo and you do want him kept away in his little booking chamber, fine. Okay, if you want a Kenny universe, I'm sure if you put certain people in it, we tolerate it because it's better than just having everything overrun by this other stuff. Fine, okay, but then make him a strong babyface. Make him the guy that we've been waiting to see. Why is his promo off the air better than the ones he's cutting on the air?
Yeah.
Does he believe in this stuff? Does he not believe in this stuff? Is he confident in the story going forward himself? Does his eyes say that? Because they don't to me. Yeah, we need to see a difference. Fix it. I was disappointed. I was disappointed in the way he was, he got his promotion in terms of they focused around him eventually.
Yes.
For whatever reason it may be, they did focus around him on his return. We could have done with, as always, a follow-up after the match maybe, but at least he's promoted for this week. But yeah, you've got to get into that next phase very, very quickly. I get it. I just don't think, for me, it was the right choice. And it just fell into that constant heat bubble that we're just living in right now.
And I was also I get this because I appreciate that, for many people, Ospreay is the main character. But again, Kenny has no agency. Ospreay is the one on Collision last night talking about how he wants to have a meeting with Kenny, right? Ospreay is the one driving the story forward, not Kenny. And I'm kind of that's fine. But I kind of like to see I haven't seen Kenny. He's been away for a while. I see a lot of Ospreay. I'd like to see Kenny more. Maybe he could do this promo, but all right, whatever. It's fine. I think it's worth pointing out as we go through this that this was the first segment on Dynamite. It was the first match on Dynamite, and it ended in a heat segment and a heel beatdown, where the baby faces were left lying at the end of the segment. There may be a theme here today, folks.
There may be a theme.
There may be a theme here today, folks. Yeah, it was fine. I was not. I don't know. a little, like yourself, I was a little bit disappointed.
Yeah, and the thing about picking this episode apart, which we don't normally do, is
No.
because there was just a run of things that are the major issues that have been going on for months.
Right.
So then we come out of that, you've got the Swerve and Ricochet stuff, which is good. You know, that's the breaker. That's slightly different. Ricochet has accepted in a really good way, and in terms of, you know, the guys working with him, whether it's Will or whoever, that, you know, the best way for you to get over in AEW, so to speak, is to change who you are, right? To be a new character, to be something different, to be that alternative. You know, to not the same way that John Moxley did when he came out of WWE into AEW. You know, he wasn't Dean Ambrose anymore, although I keep seeing that name banded around a lot more this week. But he was John Moxley, and that's exactly what they've done with Ricochet. And he's a heel. He's a heel. He doesn't want to get cheered. He wants to get booed. They're doing things to get him booed. He's a geek heel, but he's a heel, and it works for him. And that's, you know, that's good. That program, good. Okay. Yep. So it feels like you gloss over stuff that's good, but because it gets such a small part of the show, it's difficult to kind of go say any more than that.
Well, I think it's worth pointing out that, like, of all of the people on the show, Swerve as a babyface looks cool. He looks smart. He looks cool. Like, that's not something that you're seeing a lot lately with a lot of the baby faces. And, like, credit to Swerve for doing it. Credit for Ricochet for going along with it. Like, I give credit to Ricochet for, like, being willing to look like an idiot halfway through his heel turn. And that was helpful because it gave you an actual reason as to why the guy was turning heel. It wasn't just an arbitrary thing that happened. He had an actual storyline reason to do it. Swerve humiliated him and made him look like a fucking idiot. Like, you know, so, like, that, I mean, credit to that. Like, it was a well put together segment that made both guys look, you know, they've had back and forth segments where both guys have looked smart, but Swerve has also looked smart. They've been able to get heat on Ricochet without Swerve looking like a fucking moron.
Yeah, it's vulnerability. Right? Yeah. Big thing to a heel. So you give that vulnerability, you then use that to fuel the acts of the heel. But that's very much of that. And then you go straight into someone who Swerve has kind of passed away like ships with the Hurt Syndicate and Private Party.
Ugh.
Go on.
No, I have a lot of issues with this match for a lot of reasons, okay? So we have MVP's debut as an in-ring wrestler in AEW, and a lot of discussion with commentary and from MVP that he has not wrestled and he has not wrestled. And then, of course, he had done a blood sport with Josh Barnett, which I think they tried to sort of discuss away by saying, you know, he's done other things and he looked old and he looked slow. And I didn't think it was a particularly good outing for him. And the fact that he spent a lot of time getting heat on Mark Briscoe and beating Mark Briscoe up, I didn't think made Mark Briscoe look very good either. And Mark Briscoe, to his credit, was bumping his ass off. But, you know, there were times where I was like, MVP struggling to, like, walk across the ring. Like, it was just, I didn't feel like it was particularly good. And there was a couple of moments where during the in-ring action, they cut to Shelton Benjamin on the floor. And Shelton Benjamin looks amazing. Like, he's moving really fast. He's like doing, and I'm like, oh, okay, so this guy looks great. But, like, And then on top of that, you have the match itself where Private Party, I think, got maybe a brief moment of offense. Brief second where Isaiah Cassidy got tagged in, and then they got just beat down. And it was just beat down. They looked horrible here. And this was their first appearance on Dynamite since they won, or their first match on Dynamite since they won the tag titles. And it was just one of those things where I was like, why am I watching this? And I appreciate that there are a lot of people who have been like, Private Party wasn't ready. See, we told you Private Party wasn't ready. And I'm sorry. Like, I'm looking at the caliber of wrestlers that are getting featured regularly on Dynamites in some of these matches, and I talked about Hook a little bit. There's no reason why Private Party couldn't have gotten some wins, couldn't have gotten some small feuds. Like, you know, we put the belts on the Gun Club, and they actually stepped up. Like, you can't have an opportunity to do that. Instead, we've made Private Party look like we haven't given them any time at all. We made them look like absolute, like, you know, they didn't get anything in that match, right? Herb Syndicate did nothing to make them look good. And now they're going to clearly lose the fucking belts next week, right? We're going to talk about that. And it's just such a waste, in my opinion, for a bunch of, you know, like, I wasn't looking at that match thinking, wow, these guys look incredible. I'm so excited. And I know other people are like, oh, they should get the tag titles, blah, blah. But I just feel like I'm looking forward to more of these type matches, right? Where we just get overwhelming dominance. And I'm not sure that's what I'm interested in seeing.
So this is all about structure. And this is a structure that benefits nobody.
Right.
No one can tell me this benefits anybody. So we have a heel team who are playing the cool heels.
Yep.
They're not there to get booed. They don't try to get booed. Okay? Which is, that's my ultimate pet peeve.
Right.
It's like as soon as that, I hate it. Like, that's not your role as a heel.
Right.
And they gave them nothing. Nothing. So there is no believability in them beating them.
Nope.
And if they do, it means nothing. It'll just be seen as Dark Order beating House of Black sort of thing.
Yep.
It has no believability. And then you squash Mark Briscoe, who should be one of the easiest kind of homegrown, can talk, he's not homegrown, but he's homemade in the sense that people associate him with AEW in the spiritual sense, I guess. And you're going to squash him just like that after the C2.
Yep.
After he went through the Jericho program where you gave him nothing back after he kind of invoked the name of his dead brother.
Yep.
This is what we're saying. So we are weak baby faces. Weak baby faces that are associated with the AEW side to these people that are coming in from elsewhere who are mid-carders in other sense. This is the sort of thing that damages you. And you can say that it doesn't mean that it's WWE and AEW. No, this is exactly what damages you. So with Private Party, right? Private Party, by the way, who was Tony Khan's decision.
Yeah.
Because everyone's misinterpreted that interview 20 times now. I'm bored of reading the same things 10 times. It's like, this was his decision after that match at Wrestle Dream to put the titles on Private Party. And it fitted in with the Jon Moxley stuff because it was all about raising these people who have been in the same spot for so long and giving them that kind of opportunity. And what did we say at the time? What did I say? If you do not do this, this whole story fails. It's not about just putting a belt on someone. You cannot get away with a 2022 trick of, all our guys are young guys from AEW and they've all got belts. But look over here at these shiny belts, but actually we're not going to push them. Everybody's used to it. They're used to the routine. So you put the belts on them and then they don't appear on Dynamite until 2 weeks ago because you're going to take the belts off them. What does that even look like? That is basically this huge bloody icon. We do not care about them. Because he doesn't care about them.
No.
But they're not going to even get the opportunity to let you care about them and let the audience care about them. They're just there to have the belts because they needed to come off the Bucks because you wouldn't pay them for more dates. And you just want to be able to say that, now they've got belts. So here's some more young guys that are coming up. We're elevating them when they come in, but it's Hurt Syndicate that are on Dynamite every week.
Right.
It's Shelton Benjamin that's wrestling every week. It's him and the Z2. It's like, this is so stupid. So then you have what? They had pay-per-view defense when they were in a 4-way. No real massive build to that. You have one defense on Collision. You have one defense on Rampage. It wasn't even a defense on Rampage, just a match on Rampage.
Just a squash match.
Sorry. The 2 matches on Collision and Rampage there are just matches. They're not actual title defenses. And then they have a defense on Collision against Action Andretti and Leo Rush, probably when they realised they were going to drop it. That's literally it. So you gave them 2 defences since the 30th of October. The 30th of October, and you gave them no time until they were going to drop them. How can you explain this to people? And then the funny thing is, you're going to do this Moxie story, and you're going to talk about all the originals rising up, and I think they had the idea of doing this kind of Avengers thing, where all these young guys were all in a line, this is what we've achieved, we take this company back, and they're going to drop the fucking belts before we're even halfway through.
If you're not going to give them TV time, you can't do that story.
No, it's dead. It's dead. This is why it's dead. The story's dead. The Private Party stuff is dead, and it's always all their fault. They were never going to do this. Is it their fault? Is it? No, you don't give them a fucking chance, because once he's put them in a spot, he has put them in a spot.
Yes.
And this is the frustration. You don't get to keep your momentum because you don't get the opportunity to, unless you're one of these older guys or one of these guys that has Tony Zero, who's long standing. What opportunity have they had to prove themselves in this spot? They haven't. And he's already moved on. He's already playing with a new toy now. That's it. And this was bad. I'm sorry. You can be, they were really cool. No, this is bad. This is one of them things in the moment you might be they're really cool. They're supposed to be fucking heels. And then the setup for their next opponents is you get Cage and Archer squishing Top Flight. Top Flight, no entrance, by the way.
No entrance. I swear to God, I was halfway through that match and thought, they're facing jobbers. And then I looked up and went, wait a second, that's Top Flight?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I mean, and again, I think it's worthwhile pointing out that it's not just a series of fan frustration. If you're a young wrestler in the back thinking about your opportunity, you're looking at this shit and going, wow, okay.
You are looking at this shit. They are looking at this shit. I want to make that really, really clear. They're looking at this, and this is what they see. And then they look on the other side, and they see, and this has been a big thing this week, which I did not bring up to anybody, but someone brought up to me, and they look at Penta's debut.
Yep.
And they see a guy getting all the fireworks, all the electrics.
Yep.
You know, they see a guy getting promo time, live to you, and we'll talk about that in a bit. They see all these things, and then they look at their own spot, and they think, okay, so what's the best I can achieve here? Oh, I can get a shiny belt, but he still won't push me because he's decided where I live.
Yep.
And that's exactly what's going on here. But that's bad business. You could look, they can't win next week. You actually have to squash them now, and you've wasted it. And you are literally hurting your overall big storyline, and I don't think you even realise you're doing it. And I think there's a lot of that, you know. I always think about, do you remember when he talks about June 2022 and what kind of was the cause of AEW started their decline in business? And he talks about the injuries to CM Punk, the injury to Adam Cole, the injury to Bryan Danielson.
No. I mean, yes, he does say that, but that's, yes, he says that. That's not what it was.
No. But yeah, it's that whole thing where you don't realise how you're hurting yourself. And I know he doesn't. And I know he probably won't listen to anybody that tells him because he's very much positivity echo chamber. That's a big talking point in that company, is that you can say whatever you can raise anything to him, but he lives in that echo chamber. And that's why we say sometimes when you don't want to do criticism online and you think it's all just bad faith and you just want it to be the tribalism stuff, it's not helping. No. It really doesn't help. But yeah, this was a bad segment that literally people will just, oh, they're cool, so it doesn't matter. It really does matter. And these are the sort of things that have long-term implications. And you go straight into there to rated FTR video.
Yes, the rated FTR video. We got a beautiful, lovely, 30 seconds on why FTR and Cope are friends and together, because in storyline, we don't know. They've never really interacted with each other in storyline. They're friends because of God and their families and their friends. And that's it. And that's all we get. We don't have to be shown any of that. We can just be told about it in a quick voiceover and we should be good to go. That's enough. They're friends. Come on. You want to talk about, this is a 1-2 punch, because we talk about this a lot. And again, I'm not trying to make universal discussions, because I know that you can say not all women. But you want to get women invested in your program, and we'll talk about the fucking blatant sexism and misogyny in your promo segments in a minute. Maybe show them people becoming friends. Let's create a storyline where people talk to each other and get invested and realize they have things in common and then decide they want to team up to fight the bad guys. That's a thing. We could do that. No, there's some photos of the backstage where FTR have been hanging out with Cope. And I realize that FTR's dreams have finally come true and they get to be in a group with a much bigger star. And so they get to wear the branded jackets and they have their special merch and everything is finally happening for them. They don't actually have to do tag matches. They don't have to try. They don't have to be in storylines. But for the love of Christ, this is just this is laziness at its height. And it really annoyed me.
I thought it was hilarious because it was you've forgotten what you were. And I think there's a lot of that. And this is the biggest complaint that you hear. And people, you had all discussions, it was better in 2019 or better in 2020 or 2021. And other people hit back, oh no, the matches are better now. And it's it's never about that. We love to do deflection. And it's you forgot how you used to tell stories in a way that used to kind of get over your fan base. And that's perfect on that. But yeah, you have this run, right? So you go into the Hurt Syndicate stuff. And then you go into that promo and you just roll your eyes to the back of your head. And that was on top of the Copeland promo last week, which were very much, I'm here to save the day now. All these AEW original guys aren't worth anything. Which very much reminded me of one that he cut on Daniel Bryan in 2021, where he was doing the, you never wrestle very much on the independents, and I wrestled 5 nights a week when he was a part-timer for a decade. It's it was just misjudged, right? But that's what this felt like. It was misjudged. And I was okay, right, fine, moving on.
And again, worth pointing out that match number 2, which was Hurt Syndicate versus Private Party and Mark Briscoe, ended in a heel beatdown and a heel victory. And the Babyface
because
team
nobody's
losing.
talking to each other, and no one's talking to each other, and no one's booking with each other. It's all done in little silos, and that's where you get all this stuff. That's why you get, your MJF getting colour with Adam Cole at the last pay-per-view on the back of Will Ospreay's blade job. Like, nothing's getting planned together, and they blame leaks, and they say, if everything's going to work together, then these things get out. Well, guess what? You're the leakiest company ever. Like, people in Japan are telling us everything that's coming from your company.
Yeah, nobody's
everybody knows.
You couldn't get shit. Everybody's talking these days.
Yeah,
Everybody's
literally,
talking
everyone's
these days.
yapping. It's not working. You have to change it. And then we get into the middle of the show. And at this point, I'm starting to feel like you are literally building a show to offend me. Because that's how it felt. I'm like, have you taken every single fucking thing that drives me up the wall and you've decided to put it all together? And I was like, okay. All right, okay. So we get to this Max Jeff Jarrett.
9 o'clock hour, right at 9 p.m.
Yeah. Okay. There's this thing about age, and we talked about last time about overexposure, and I've quite enjoyed seeing that term be picked up a little bit, right?
Yeah, everybody's using that word now. It's good.
Cool, good. Use it. Max is someone who's overexposed. He's not old,
badly.
but the act is overexposed. And you then put him with Jeff Jarrett, whose age is, and this run, it all defines itself. And this is a promo straight from the Attitude Era.
It was an awful program. And I watched Dynamite on a delay, and I heard about how long this was, and I was kind of curious, and I ended up, I busted out the stopwatch, and I timed the fucking thing. And from the moment that the entrance started for Jeff Jarrett until the fucking camera cut away from Jeff Jarrett's face, it was 13 minutes and 29 seconds of hell.
That was it?
That's it. It feels like it was a lot fucking longer, but it was just 13 goddamn minutes. And it was the biggest waste of 13 minutes that this show has had. And I'm talking about a show that had fucking the Hurt Syndicate, squashing Private Party. This was awful. This was why this made air, why anybody thinks this is good. Like, you want to get women to watch your fucking show? How about not going straight back to bullshit, like you said, Attitude Era misogyny and sexism. Oh, I'm gonna have sex with your wife. Oh, your girlfriend's a slut. She's doing a gangbang backstage. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? What the fuck is wrong with you? And I don't want to hear people being like, oh, it's heat. They're trying to get heat. They're not supposed to be likable. Isn't there supposed to be a baby face in this? Isn't the whole point of that we have this is because Jeff Jarrett gave such an incredible fucking babyface promo in the Owen that he had every fucking guy talking about how he should get a title shot. Well, thank you. That monkey's paw just curled. Like, are you serious with this bullshit right now? Like, I didn't want to hear from either of those guys. And the worst part about it is that there was actually a nugget of something interesting in here, right? I appreciate what they were trying to do. I get that they were trying to have basically Jarrett out Carney MJF and essentially say, your insults don't work on me. I'll use the same insults back at you, right? But it's not as fun when you have to fucking listen to it at home, right? I'm getting enough sexism right now from my current country's political climate and my goddamn job, right? That I don't necessarily need to hear this shit on TV either. It's not fun for me to watch it. And I don't think most people had fun watching it either, right? But the worst part about it is, in this, there's a fucking nugget of something where Jarrett talks to MJF and says, you're a scared little boy, you're afraid you're a one-hit wonder, you're not going to be any better than what you were, and that your 15 minutes is over and you're never going to achieve the heights you achieved in your 20s. That's fucking interesting. That ties into some bigger shit with MJF and his insecurities and the character that we once at one time had, right? But instead, that was what? Maybe it took 15 seconds for Jarrett to say, and we had another 13 minutes and 15 seconds of fucking bullshit, right? To get Karen Jarrett out there so we can get her fucking involved in this. Like, I'm over it. And I don't want to see this. I'm not interested in this. This is fucking boring, right? Like, Jeff Jarrett getting 13 minutes of promo time in the year 2025. Like, how many people, when this is a thing that got brought up on the board, and it was such a good fucking comment that you and I passed it back and forth to each other, and I think it's worth saying. It's from O-Dog. He basically said that with the talent on this roster, the inability to get more than 2 guys under the age of 30 over, there should never be a week of Dynamite where the talent left off the show would make a better episode than the ones that appear. Yet here we are, and it's happening regularly. Right? And like you said, MJF is fucking overexposed. Yep. And it's what's sad about this is the same thing I would have said about Adam Cole in terms of being overexposed. MJF had 6 fucking months off. He was gone for 6 months and he's back and I'm already bored. Because it's the same shit over and over again. It's the same bullshit cadence and the sing-song stuff. And he says bud and he calls somebody patronizing and then he gets really mad and he growl yells. And it's like, I'm just like, come on. Like, come on. Like, we've heard it before and it was boring before and you've done all your interesting programs already. Like, do better, right? You're supposed to be a fucking wrestling genius. Do better.
It's interesting that Kenny has actually updated, you know, for all the queries we have about Kenny's presentation and his storyline, at least he's updated things, you know, and Max doesn't seem to have that capability or the will to do that at the moment. Yeah, here's a stat for you. So Jeff Jarrett has had more promo time on AEW television than Adam Page since he returned on July the 3rd. Live mic time.
I mean, we got to tell a big story.
Nah, explain this to me. I've just finished actually very shortly ago reading Aaron Rock Kelsey's latest article on.
Very good, by the way.
Very good.
We definitely recommend it.
Yeah, his two. He had the one on TNA that set the cat amongst the pigeons, which was spot on early in the week, and he had this one on Adam Page today. And he said, and it stuck with me because I read it like 5 times and I kept going back to the line, was Jeff Jarrett is closer to the AEW World title than Adam Page is right now. Explain. Like, no, I don't get it. And what do you think about the idea of this going to All In? Fuck it, I don't get it.
Listen, the fact that we had like a 13-minute fucking Jeff Jarrett live mic promo that followed up with a behind the scenes where fucking Dustin Rhodes had to show up and tell Jeff that, you know, we're old warriors. Like, it was literally like Tony Khan looked at Twitter on Sunday night and went, fuck it. Let's double down, right? Like, let's lean in even harder. Like, you want to see young guys? Fuck that. We're going to squash the young guys. You don't want to see the old guys? Let's get every old guy we can on the show. Hey, Samoa Joe's back. Let's get Dustin Rhodes a squash on Collision. Like, what the fuck?
See, that was even funnier, right? Because this is the whole Dave Douglas of it. So then they go into Hook and Christian Cage, and they can't give Hook the win because they've given Christian Cage this briefcase amongst other promises, right? So, and Hook's the guy, one of these original guys that, like, it's his creation, so he's going to push him harder than anybody that's just come in from slightly elsewhere that he could make that's better than Hook. You know, this is a guy that has stagnated for the last 5 years. It was still an awful promo.
And not a particularly good wrestler.
No, and rather than kind of getting him out there in some way where he can develop, you're going to throw him on TV and you can't give him the win. So then what you're going to do is you're going to set up the return of another guy from another era, and that's going to be the big focal point. So this is the match structure. So you can talk about the match structure in the match, fine, okay? But the way this whole thing is structured is to get the pot for Samoa Joe. It's not to put over Hook. So that's what you do. So you get this thing with Samoa Joe and TNA, right? TNA they are the best, they're the best social media people ever. Whoever does these match things is just hilarious because it comes to the end and you think we've just had a run, right? We've gone for Bobby Lashley and the Hurt Syndicate. You know, people will remember from TNA. And then we've gone straight into, you know,
MJF and Jeff Jarrett.
Jeff Jarrett. And then we've gone into Christian Cage. And then we have Samoa Joe. And they straight away put up a match from Christian Cage and Samoa Joe in 2007. And I just went, no, that's it. I'm fucking done. I'm fucking done. Like, that's it. It's over. It's over. Like, you're taking the piss now. This is literally just a royal piss take. And then we get into... And then straight from that, you know, you go into the Casino Gauntlet. By the way, the high point in the demo on the show. Fun. Undertimed because MJF went over, because of course he did. You know, that's another way of controlling things that he's very good at. And it's like, this is something people are invested in. It's got numbers behind it.
Yes.
You know, not fake YouTube numbers. It's got actual numbers behind it. And guess what? It's going to get the short of the moment. And this is the thing with the Tony Storm thing that we've been saying since the beginning. Like, it needed to be in all big segments. Doesn't matter if you're doing this story about coming back and being a rookie, you just put it in all big segments. It doesn't make any difference. And it's a focal point. And it got undercut because of all this bullshit. And that was one of the high points of the show.
Listen, I get that not everybody is liking the Tony Storm stuff, but I am fucking living for it, okay? The promo she had on Collision with Tony Schiavone last night absolutely fucking cracked me up, okay? The fact that the announcers are sort of like, well, we're not sure, and then Tony was like, okay, Schiavone, I mean, he's like, okay, listen, this is, and she's like, no, I'm not even going to engage with it. Like, there is going to come a point where something is going to happen. Tony's going to win the title back. She's going to defeat Mariah. Something's going to happen, and she's going to turn and say it was the role of a lifetime. And I'm going to pop so fucking hard for it because it's stupid and it's fun and it's showing me a babyface who's smart and who is outwitting the heel. Okay, and I'm not getting any of that from the men's division.
It was literally the only segment I think on the show that had no heat segment built in towards its ending.
Yes, because match number 3, which was Christian versus Hook, had an interference DQ, which led to a beatdown, which led to Samoa Joe's return.
Exactly. And then same with the main. So in the main, he gives Hobbs a lot, but then it ends in the same finish. And then you see nothing. And then it doesn't matter that he gives him a lot because the setup is then to get your FTR and your Adam Copeland running. And then, we got a couple of different stories about that, but eventually it seems to turn out that they pulverised the lead and then they planned logically to then have Hobbs take everybody out, but fucked it up on time and didn't do it. That is the best summary of ever. I was just like, right, that's it. Look, I can understand where people would like this show if you really enjoyed the Kenny match and you really enjoyed the main event, right? But the theme of just constant heat, dumb baby faces, people who are overexposed, people who have been on TV since the last millennium.
Yeah. The 40-year rivalry between Cope and Chris Jericho.
What the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? You have, and this is why, when that graphic went up, people didn't get fucking pissed off when that graphic went up because they thought it was going to be a bad fucking match. It wasn't, this match is going to be horrific, it's going to be the end of the world. No, it's like, we don't want this because you are supposed to be an alternative. Yeah. We would like to see this where the best wrestle roster, which is now where the best wrestle occasionally if he feels like it. Yeah. I would like to see, Swerve Strickland wrestle most weeks. I would like to see Adam Page wrestle most weeks.
Ooh.
I would like to see
Darby Allin
wrestle most weeks. I'd like to see Jay White wrestle most weeks. And promo, for God's sake, give these guys a live mic. Don't do a program where you put Hangman Page in your main event program and then give him no live mic against John Moxley and you're not going back to it because you're not. I would just like that. I don't mind watching Will Ospreay every week. He gets pushed like that now, but you can carry on with that. I'd like to see Kenny Omega wrestle every week. That would be nice too. Do you know what I'd really like to see? Some of these guys that are in the C2, the Beast Mortos, the Commander that got the Juice Robinson. I'd like to see them every week. I'd like to see Daniel Garcia every week, our TNT champion that also can't get on Dynamite. Or
to
get
save his life.
Or love or money. I'd like to see Takeshita wrestle every week.
Oh, that'd be great.
Who blew everyone away at Wrestle Dynasty and Wrestle Kingdom, who New Japan were courting and have done a very good job and are going to get. And whether that's because their infrastructure in the US is not good enough or whether he feels like he needs to be back there. The key bit is he was never going to get pushed above this level anyway and they made no effort with his title reign, so don't fucking tell me. And it's the second time that he's getting a push. Last time they beat Kenny Omega, this time he got a belt and same fucking result. And, now he's had more... Has he had more matches? I need to check. Has he had more matches in New Japan than he has in AEW since he won that belt?
For defenses with the international title, yes. He's defended the international title more times in New Japan.
Let me bring that up, right? Let me bring it up. So, Takeshita, right? Here's a case study. I'm in one today. Right? What did I name this? What did I name this pod? I had a name for this pod. Right?
You called it Trish and Sarah address their enemies.
Yeah, that's what it is. Fuck it. You can just if you didn't expect that, you can just delete this one. I'm fed up now. We've had months and years of this. We have to sit there and we tell you what's going to happen because we can see his patterns and we have to hear from people. Everybody knows what's coming, and then it happens, and then what?
They have to make Bryan Danielson champion. We have to have Bryan Danielson champion. They can't do a death match in Wembley Stadium. They can't push Adam Page. He's not somebody who cares about the production or the promotion. Why are they? They have to. Swerve has to step aside for Danielson. They have to have Danielson in the title lineage. Of course, it makes sense for Danielson to take it to Mox. Copeland's coming back and he's in the main event picture. And you and I just,
I'm fucking done with it, right?
We told you in March. Go listen to the shows.
Yeah, you go listen to one after Wrestle Dream where we got absolute shit on with Rich for saying Takeshita's not going to get fucking anything.
Right.
Garcia's not going to get anything. Page isn't going to get anything. And everyone got really upset. Well, you ain't fucking arguing me now. And the people took victory laps because they were like, oh, he's going to get this mega face turn. Fuck off, you as well. Anyway, right. So he won the belt on where? There we go. 12th of the 10th, right? That's Wrestle Dream. Okay. And then he had 2 matches in Maple Leaf Pro. He had a tag match on Dynamite for the 11th.
He had the Ricochet match at Full Gear.
Oh, wait, hang on. No. He had an international title defense at Fighting Spirit in New Japan. He wrestled Defy and DDT at Defy again. Oh, and then he has a Dynamite match. Oh, that's not a title defense. That's Adam Cole.
He's had two Dynamite defenses. One against Powerhouse Hobbs and one against Ricochet.
Oh, no, not on Dynamite. They're
No, I beg you. 2 AEW defenses.
All right. Yeah, no, you're actually right. He's had more in New Japan. He's had 3 in New Japan. 3 in New Japan. And I guess people go, well, Dynasty's an AEW show. And I'm like, yeah, my favourite game when we were there was to go find, like, when you're in the stadium, is to see the thing that says New Japan Pro Wrestling 1-5 Wrestle Dynasty. And then to try and, like, where's AEW? You look at the little ticker and you see that little bar and you're like, there it is. No. He's had more defenses in New Japan than he has in AEW.
Oh, it's an international title. That's what it's supposed to be for. They're supposed to be.
Yeah, it was. I bet. Was it? Did MJF have more defenses in a month? Oh, fuck it. I'm in my cage match now. Here we go. Right? I reckon he did. What do you reckon?
I'm going to pour myself another gin.
Are you going to... You want gin? Okay.
Girl.
Yeah, I don't know if I can... I don't drink. This is what happens. I just eat shit. Right, okay. When did he win? So he won that one, 17th to the 7th. And then he defended in oh, no, he got away with Eliminator? Yeah, he gets away with an Eliminator. There we go. Just about survives. You know, only 1 month compared to 4. But yeah,
listen,
it's different, right? So Takeshita doesn't get that belt and get treated like Will Ospreay.
No.
And that's a trick that they used to tell you. And that's the importance that you used to believe that he had. And he doesn't.
They used to believe it. They don't believe it anymore. People do not believe this shit anymore.
They don't. People want all elite wrestling. They want all elite wrestling. I don't think they want this AEW, whatever it is now. This identity crisis.
Frankenstein's monster of TNA and WWE.
Yeah, this identity-ridden crisis promotion that can make you feel the highest of highs and the lowest of lows within 20-minute time span. Because that's what this is. And it's like, that's not all elite wrestling. That's not what this is. And it's not fun. It's he'll beat down, he'll win, he'll beat down, he'll win. And it's funny because I was reading all that stuff from 2021 building up to that WrestleMania, looking at some numbers for Copeland. And it's the same problems. They're talking about the Royal Rumble having this huge age thing and then comparing it to an AEW Battle Royal. And then they're talking about, and then to go with it, we've got heel win after heel win on that WrestleMania. I think they said only one babyface won in the entire night on the second night. And I'm like, where have we seen this? It's cyclic.
There were 11 matches on the World's End card, and there were 8 heel wins on that card.
Lovely.
11, and I'm including the pre-show on that.
Yep.
Okay? So, it's just... And again, in the service of this, your baby faces look like fucking idiots, which was not something they ever did before.
No. They figured out at the very start that you have strong baby faces and you have strong endings. You know, in your big, especially on the pay-per-views, they used to be loaded with babyface wins. Why? Because you want people to be invested in your product and keep coming back. And you're going to do that by investing in strong characters. Yep. You know, it's the same with the superhero things. It's all the same things. That's what they do now. And these need to be people that you can grow with, that you can experience their journey with, because that is how you get active engagement. Not just somebody checking in and out and going, what's going on in this product, but actually following week to week. They hit the TV numbers. They hit, they buy merchandise. They buy live tickets. All the things they've been struggling with. And the one thing that they identified at the very, very start, they seem to have forgotten. And it's infuriating. So it's like... all these alternative kind of young guys and the party matches and the fun atmosphere and everything like that. And we've thrown it all away for this heat because we're going to try and get Darby Allin over, who can get over by himself.
Yeah,
and
Darby Allin doesn't need anybody's... He doesn't, to quote Rich from friggin' ONR last week, he doesn't need anybody's fucking help to get over. No. Darby Allin is one of the top 10 wrestlers in AEW history. I think you could argue top 5. Yeah. The audience connection he has is incredible. Yeah. But, John Moxley has to come back to get him over.
So forgive me that, he can have that incredible TNT title run back in 2021 and light up all the numbers. And we think that we need this thing to get him over. And then we're going to add that to the fact that we're going to Pillmanize Hobbs' leg. We're then going to beat his leg again, and he can come out and storm a tag match, and Darby gets written off by going down an invisible staircase for the next 3 months. there's no logic to this, and you are not helping yourselves. You're not helping yourselves. And then, so you do need to build up a baby face, but you can't do that now. So your choice at the start of 2025, when WWE is starting to kind of fuck up their order and bring in old guy after old guy and fix that sort of stuff, and where they've got the work shoot stuff coming in everywhere up to this latest stuff with Corey Graves and whatever else, you have an opportunity, and you take your opportunity by going, you know what we're going to run when we're doing this story about, you know, underutilized kind of originals. Yeah. You know what we're going to run? No, we're going to fuck that off, and we're going to run FTR, Overexposed, another act, don't have to be necessarily old, but Overexposed. And Adam Copeland doing the same gimmick, or Cope, doing the same gimmick that he has for 20 years, and we're going to make him the Cody Light babyface. We're going to give him the promo time that we didn't give Jay White or Adam Page, or even Orange Cassidy to the same extent last time. We're going to give them the run-ins and all the kind of the babyface pops and the saves, and actually, like, not just geek them out. Like, it's 2025. And the Copeland thing, this thing has been here for a while, right?
Yeah.
And this is going to sound like I'm starting at Adam Copeland today, and I don't really have a way around it, because he is a nice guy. Everybody there will say he is a nice guy.
Same about Christian.
You know? But he's in the wrong spot. And I don't understand why they don't get it, but you can see why. Because when he came in at WrestleDream, when they did that thing, and afterwards in that press conference, and Tony Khan said he's going to be on every show, and we're in a new era. It's the Adam Copeland era. You know, this is a guy that for WrestleMania in 2021, they literally had to switch it up and put Daniel Bryan in, because one, you know, he was struggling to draw. Two, he was ended up going to be heel against Roman Reigns, who was a new heel at the time. And three, they felt he was old. They felt he was old in 2021, and now we're defining this new era, and we're calling it the Adam Copeland era. And now we've got a guy on TV who's been, you know, who's not lost to anyone other than Christian Cage on AEW television, who is all over TV, and you are running, you know, him and likely John Moxley at your next big pay-per-view at Revolution in LA, which is always going to have a guaranteed attendance, so you're going to throw that number out to hold it all up. What are you benefiting from this? What do you think you're benefiting from this? No, Copeland is not a guy that's going to spark your business. He's not. He never has been. He gets pops in arenas, always has done that. Give him that. And he'll do fine. Sometimes he does less than fine. You know, he won that Rumble in 2021. He goes to NXT, he does a 0.15. And everything crumbles. I think Dave referred to it as a devastating rating. Like, there is no benefit to this. Why are you putting so much behind this guy to make him look great and not your own people? Who is it in your ear? Why are you talking? Why are you listening? Why is this a guy that in fact, I found this quote because I thought it was hilarious. I was actually just looking for numbers, right? So, when he won the Rumble in 2021, Dave Meltzer wrote, "It's notable the differences with Edge and Daniel Bryan on the creative team. That these are two people that get substantial interview time leading up to the match. But Edge at 47 was pushing for a main event title shot, while Bryan at 39 in his position was pushing constantly to get other people over." Like, is this still his mentality? Does he still believe that he should be at the top of his card and that's the best place for him? Does Tony believe that? Like, seriously, is this what you believe? Is there any company ever that has turned around on, let's go back to these old guys and put them on top? And when you see that graphic, and then you see the Chris Jericho one, and take out the illogical thing of having the learning tree tagging with Death Riders, which is just a disaster.
Stupid.
Yeah. Are you looking at this stuff and realising how much you've aged your company? Like, you have all these great young wrestlers. You could look different, but no, you just look the same. You look the same. It doesn't matter that they're great in ring, all of them, right? Or they can do this, or they can do that. Can these other guys do more in that slot? Can they achieve more in that slot? Can they draw more in that slot? Well, there's plenty of evidence that some of these guys can. So why are we doing this? And then, did you see that quote today? I lit up right before we got on, which has probably inflated my mood, which is why you're getting what you're getting today, right? Adam Copeland goes on Leaf Nation, and he says, you know, he's asked about potential retirement. And he says...
Leaf Nation being the Toronto Maple Leaf Nation, I think is probably worth clarifying.
I thought that would... Yeah, I didn't think he was, like, collecting leaves or anything. I didn't think it was, like, Leaf Society.
Leaves is plants, but this is
Leaves
a different situation.
Yeah, no, Hanger has a different society. But he says, you know, he's talking about a retirement match, and he's like, who do I get in there with last? I'd love to get in there with a young person and just strap a rocket to them. In my last match, what can I do to set someone up, or at least another block in the foundation to set them up, to be able to take it further and further? I think of Bret, obviously Hart, and I take his example and I look at what he did for me. He didn't need to do that. He didn't need to put that time in. He didn't need to care, but he did. That really taught me about the whole thing of giving back. It's true. I don't want to be the old guy that's just hanging on. I want to wrestle somebody who I feel is going to be part of the future of AEW and just have fun experience together, and then after go, all right, then take it and run. I'm thinking I have like maybe 2 years left. And the whole thing, I read it and I thought, the mentality's wrong. Like, what's going on here? This is a guy that should be giving back now. You should be losing and putting people over now. And the best thing about NAW doesn't even just mean losing, like, because you need to give up some of your time and your spot to people that can exist in that spot. Like, is your head mentality that you need to be at the top now, and then you think you're going to be able to put somebody over in 2 years and that's going to be the best thing for this company? Like, someone needs to kind of get in the middle here. There needs to be an intermediary. There needs to be like a step in on Tony, and like, these guys are just working you right now. They have complete control over him and they get exactly what they want, and no one's thinking about the future. And, you know, the younger guys are thinking, we'll just wait this out. We just wait this out. Some of them aren't. Some of them are thinking, you know, they get frustrated and they look at Penta and they think about the other side. But if this continues, you won't get to that 2 years because you'll lose more than Takeshita. And then it's like, oh, retirement match. That's going to put someone over. When has a retirement match that's been labelled as a retirement match got anybody over but the guy retiring? Right?
Never.
Yeah. So you have Sting, right? Sting and Darby. And now I think about it, and I think, you know what, the Bucks are actually right to do what they did, because the Bucks wouldn't be remembered for that. It's Sting's last match. It's marketed as Sting's last match. The merchandise says Sting's last match. It doesn't say, you know...
The Bucks beat Sting.
Yeah, exactly. So you have that moment, because it's Sting's moment. Match result is pretty irrelevant. It's Sting's moment. Think about Muto, right? He has his last match in the Tokyo Dome, theoretically, with Tetsuya Naito. Ends up having a little mini Chono match afterwards, which I'm sure Naito was thrilled about, right? It doesn't matter. Naito was there to deliver that crowd for his last match, this last final bye-bye, you know, of the great Muto of Muto. Tanahashi's last match next year. You know, there's this thing in the West of like he can put someone over. It's far more likely that he's going to have a match with an established rival or a tag match, because it's a celebration of Tanahashi.
Right.
It's not about, you can't elevate someone at that point. This is where Japan's figured this out, you know, so we have a lot of tag matches at the end of a career. You know, I was thinking Nakanishi at, even like smaller wrestlers at Korakuen, in 2020, which is one of my favourites, just before COVID. And it's like, it's a celebration of his career. You aren't putting someone over. If you wait to that point, what damage are you doing in the meantime? Like, there needs to be a mentality switch. And we don't have that right now. So we've got Jeff Jarrett running around in his contract year doing retirement stuff. We've got Chris Jericho still all over TV, who actually is massively overexposed now and really does need a break.
He really needs a fucking break.
Because he is in his career year, right? He's in his contract year, right? Then you've got Adam Copeland doing this stuff. You've got Christian Cage doing this stuff. You've got the Hurt Syndicate giving nobody anything. It's like
you've got Dustin Rhodes lurking in the fucking wings.
Yeah, you know, Dustin Rhodes, Beast Mortos. Which one are we going to pick? Like, these are all, they can all be fine in a vacuum if they're in the right spot. And, you know, to be fair to Adam Cole, he's figured out that he's not in the right spot and he's going to go into the tag division. And as much as, like, it annoys me in a way that it's, like, you know, Undisputed Kingdom and not like the collaboration, a fresh act that, you know, revive some of them things, fine. At least he's worked out that will be better for him right now. Great. The rest of these guys haven't. And they're all over TV. And it's everywhere. And it's reached that point where it's too much. And everyone can see it. You can't deny it now. You can't throw it to one side. It's too much. And this cannot go on. And you're not going to get out of it by putting on Darby and then having Christian cash in or anything like that. Like, you're going to have to rebalance. You've got the money now. You've got you've got that contract in your back pocket. You don't need to do this. And you're not going to get anything out of this either. So it's like, I can't. What's the justification? You know, what is it?
None of these guys are telling an interesting story.
No.
Right? None of them are telling anything new, fresh, or interesting. None of it is like it's all, like none of it's good. Nobody's got an interesting character. None of it's interesting. The matches aren't good. Like, you want to say, the main event last night, whatever. The main event last night wasn't that great. It really wasn't.
No, that tag match had a much better structure, and it made better use of the people that were in it and it felt more like a party match, like
it was good.
The traditional
it was fun
match. But yeah, the other match, while we're here, we might as well.
Yes, let's talk about the death match. It was an excellent death match.
Right, okay, here's the bit where I'm actually nice to someone. There you go. Right? This is not me killing my enemies. This is us talking about Chris Daniels and Adam Page. This is the thing about this promotion, is you can always see the things underneath where it could be great all the time.
Yeah,
you can feel
that's
it.
the part that's so infuriating.
Yeah.
That's the part that, and again, not just that, but the fact, like we talked about last episode, this is all shit they used to do easily.
Yeah.
None of the things that we're asking for are things that they have never been able to do. They did all this shit, like all years ago. Smart baby faces, integrated veterans who didn't take up too much TV time. Like, all this shit was doable.
Yeah. But this one achieved so much. And this is his retirement match. For anyone that's not sure, Christopher Daniels, this is his retirement match. He absolutely did pick Adam Page. I know that's public now. And this was the guy that he wanted to put over. And this is the way he did it. So, he could have done what everyone else has done. He could have run out there and gone, I'm having a retirement year. I'm aiming for the title. I'm this, I'm that. I need 20 minutes of promo time.
I gotta put somebody over.
But he did put someone over. And he did it by not doing that, because it wasn't about him. And for all you can say about the gimmick they've given him over the last year, and he's not the strongest promo in that kind of mini EVP general manager stuff, that's not his role, and it's not what he excels in. But for this, they went to a really simple kind of way of doing it by the end, and they very much said, if we tell everyone I'm retiring here, then nobody's going to kind of look at it for what it can do to Adam Page. And the idea is in the story, is that Page has destroyed him so much, he has to retire. It gives the character something. It gives him a lift. Daniels is giving him a lift and putting more pressure on Tony that he has to kind of follow up on by doing this. It's a clever play, but it's also giving someone something back. So when Copeland stands there and he talks about, I'm going to give something back in this high-profile slot, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, it don't mean nothing to me, because it's not real. This is how you give back. And he might give him the move as well. The Angel's Wings could become something that, Page uses. I like the Nigel McGuinness thing of using the Angel of Death. That whole thing is like, you give somebody something. That's the old school mentality of kind of putting someone over on the way out at the end. Not whatever this is now where we have the big celebrations and we mimic the kind of Japanese thing. It's like, this is it. And they structured this match perfectly. Yes. This is the type of match structure that achieves everything it aims. It's the complete opposite of that Hurt Syndicate and Private Party stuff, right? Because it's dominant, but it gives those moments of hope, but it achieves everything that it wants to do. So you go through it, and you have the little moments of kind of where the babyface gets offense in at the start because Page is distracted or he's in his own head. So he's not weak, he's not vulnerable, but it makes a use of his rage and that sort of thing to give them babyface moments. So you don't need to weaken him in order to do that, and it becomes believable. And then eventually you get the crowd into it. So yeah, my big worry going in was obviously they're not telling everybody he's retiring. So this is a guy with Chris Daniels who's not been on TV since I think he lost to Jungle Boy middle of last year. So I was very much, are they going to be able to get heat for that? And you get the pops for like the tables and all them kind of things. But he's going up against Adam Page, who, a lot of the live crowd are still very much invested in.
There were still way more cowboy shit chants at the beginning of that match.
Yeah, and you were going to get that. But the way they did it was when they got towards the end, is you literally get to the point where you think there might be a chance that this guy could survive. And you're into the story then. And then they do the count, they do the best moonsault ever. The one that split, you see Page's lip at the end where he got split open, but he's fine. And then you get to the point where you just might be that Daniels could survive, and then they use that speed churn. So you have this thing that Page does now where he's slower. Everything's high impact, it's slow, there's no moonsaults, there's none of that sort of stuff. And then all of a sudden you get to that 9 count and he shoots up. That rage and silence, everything shoots up, and that speed change grabs the audience. And that changes it from being your kind of fight forever to, oh shit. That's what it did. Like, they literally went from fight forever to oh shit, just like that. And then you finish the match, he sits over them, he gives them a great visual, and then he goes up that ramp, and then he gets to the top, and they mirror what they did at Wrestle Dream. All Out, sorry. They mirror what they did at All Out, and this is the natural progression, by the way. Forget what the fuck they were doing with that 4-way or whatever the fuck that was. Ugh. This is where we were supposed to go. This is like the character progression. And then he turns, and then they scream, and he's got them again. That's real heat. That's real emotion. You've trapped them. You've got it. And it's like, that's perfect. And then he goes back, you do the Angel's Wings. That means he basically takes that move away. He's taken that, the fallen angel away. It's now him. Yeah, he's the angel of death, Nigel McGuinness put. That's perfect. And you can use that now. You can use that going forward. Whether they do use it or not is... Look, he's not advertised coming up this week. Samoa Joe gets a match on Dynamite. This is how this works, okay? That's the reality of it.
Samoa Joe's a big star.
Yeah, he's got his TV advertisement out there. Tony Storm's got TV advertisement out there next week. Adam Cole's got TV advertisement match next week. Copeland's versus Pac, I'm sure... Hurt Syndicate and we've got great stuff coming up on Dynamite in terms of like this age thing and who we're promoting, right? At least we got Kenny and Wolf's thing, fine. But this is the point. So his follow-up is not already being presented as strong as a returning Samoa Joe or Adam Copeland or even Adam Cole. So what will come with it? But they've put the pressure on because of the work that he's able to do, where he turns this stuff into like everything. And the fact that they are able to structure this so much, like that, it was so fluid, that match as well.
Yes.
It was so fluid. They didn't feel like there was much downtime. There wasn't that thing of trying to get the old guy into position. And Daniels is so good. He's such an underestimated wrestler throughout his career. This guy was a guy that started in 93. It would have been up to 32 years this year. 32. It's insane to think about. Who was there at the very start of Ring of Honor, one of the first 4 guys. He was there at the start of TNA. And, coming through, he was there at the start of AEW. He's an important role that people respect in this industry because he's really very much a wrestler's wrestler. He's the guy that will, he's not going to cry about kind of anything online or do anything like that. He's just going to go in and do his best and try and get people over. And he's going to see things in people and he's going to drive them along. And that is this Adam Page story. This is a guy he went to at 18 and said, yeah, actually, I see something in you, when this guy had not much confidence. And always has during his career.
At Verizon, anyone can trade in their old phone for a new one on us with Unlimited Ultimate. Which means everyone in your family could get a new phone and stay on your family plan, keeping you close.
Hey, Mom, you seen my toothbrush?
Yeah, I'm almost done with it.
Oh, maybe too close. Trade in and additional terms apply. See Verizon.com for details.
And it's funny, isn't it? Because isn't this the Adam Page that doesn't respect veterans? The Adam Page that Jeff Jarrett wants to work with, the Adam Page that Chris Daniels wants to give the end of his career to and his move to, one of the biggest honours that you can do in wrestling. That's this Adam Page, right? Did I hear that right? Or maybe you just listen to people that you actually respect who, you should actually give your ear to. Maybe that's how this works. I don't know. Maybe you need to bury that little thing and maybe this is a reason to do it, the same way Sting did with the Bucks. He made a big thing about that as well. It's funny how the Elite keep being the guys these guys choose, by the way. No, Daniels is a natural pioneer. I nearly kept a straight face. Daniels is a natural pioneer. He is the pioneer of that kind of spirit, that independent spirit that kind of was the birth of AEW. That these people could build an entire career without long periods in a WWE. And didn't necessarily have to be the champion, but could provide something. And I know he'll mostly be remembered for the Unbreakable main event with Samoa Joe and AJ Styles. And, what a great match to be remembered for. But yeah, the way that he was able to conduct himself within his career, and, even now, some of the things I hear that he does as a producer, it's a credit to him. And it's a credit to him that he went out like this, not for himself, but in order to put somebody else over, and that feels much, it just feels much more to the spirit of AEW to me, and it's probably ironic that the guy that is more in line with the elite wrestling spirit is the guy with the kind of least celebrated, shall we say, retirement out of the lot. It's kind of
especially in
ironic.
the retirement. I mean, I feel like we are in AEW's retirement era.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like-
absolutely. Yeah, that's what it feels like, doesn't it? We're just going from, it's like the Sting thing just set off this kind of thing where we want to keep replicating it. But no, they did a great thing with that, and it did a great thing with Paige. And that ramp walk thing, they've left themselves a great moment now. I was speaking to someone about this last night, and maybe we shouldn't say this, but but at this point, you probably turned it off anyway, so it doesn't matter. But, no.
Only the hardcores are listening to us
Yeah,
now.
only the hardcores that listen to us that just needed a vent. That's who's left. Not on our normal format for anyone listening to the first time, but hey. No, you now have this moment where you can build that into his eventual face turn. So not only do you have the music that can come back, the look that can come back, the little caption things that you can bring back in, the style, the moonsaults, the speed that he can work at, all these things that you can bring back in at some point when you turn in babyface, so then you have that quick hit and that's going to get that huge reaction. You can now do that moment where he's going to walk up that ramp and maybe somebody needs help in that ring. Maybe it's Kenny Omega, obvious stories. And he can turn back and he can do that look over his shoulder, and he can make that choice for who he is that day, as he did in that promo. Yeah, an outstanding promo, buried in, not buried, but stuck on Collision, obviously. But he can do that, and that can be a huge moment. And he set that up just like this. There's some forward thinking, some really cleverness that I don't think a lot of people have, and that's why you get this thing like, he's the main character. Well, maybe he's not the main. Look, he's not the main character in Tony's mind. He's not a new toy. He's not any of these things, but he's definitely the most consistent, and he's the best at getting everything out of everything he gets, and that will hold him in good stead no matter what happens. And that's something that they should be aware of. They, you see it all the time. It's Kenny Omega, it's Adam Page that kind of invoke that sort of emotion. I think we now see it at Swerve Strickland. I think you will see it at Will Ospreay, who they are pushing at that level, regardless, so that he'll be fine. But it's like, there are people you can do this with, but it's not an Adam Cole. It's not even a John Moxley at this point, which says a lot about kind of what's happened with Moxley in the last couple of years. It's not a Chris.
It's kind of
K.
sad.
It is, yeah. It's not a Jeff Jarrett. It's none of these people. These people that have this actual connection with your fan base, who can invoke that, who can use the tiniest bit of time and still be able to adapt to it, even in this new environment. Those are the special guys. They are the ones that can have the ability to change this business around for you. And that is something that feels really important right now, that you kind of have to plug into. They're the ones that can survive the kind of freeze or this kind of thing that happens to all the other originals, and then when they run out and they have no heat. Well, of course they don't, because you don't put them on TV, you don't put them in big spots. These other guys can survive. And that means that they're just going to sit there as an undercurrent. And whether you choose to use them or not is your choice. It's your choice. But yeah, again, he just proves who he is. And, I think we're bored of even telling people kind of who Adam Page is at this point. But, pay attention to it, because he actually is special. I just think it achieved everything they wanted to do. If you can have a match like that with someone at that age who wrestles so infrequently, and then, people need to look up to you more as a wrestler. They need to look at what you can do. He should be in the same conversations that you're talking about, Takeshita and Omega and everybody else, and Shingo and whoever. And the fact he isn't it drives me kind of crazy. But yeah, there's a future in this company. You have to pick the right guys. You're gonna have to calm down with the Max and FTR stuff and the Copeland stuff and the Jericho stuff and everything like that. And you have to be strong. At some point you have to be strong, and you have to say, that's enough. We can't do this anymore. We need to move forward. And that didn't work so well last year, and now you have to. And you can't just keep using, as Chester said on our Discord, you can't just keep using Omega as a jangly keyring to distract from the rest of your booking. This has to move forward. And that's the whole theme of this. Is that we're just tired. We're tired. And the thing was to kind of not pick apart the show, or maybe it was, but to look at these shows and say, these are the overall themes that are upsetting people right now. Whether it's in the company or whether it's us,
It's like those books, Choose Your Own Adventure, right?
Yeah.
You choose your own adventure, and you'll be like, well, they can't be stupid enough to make the bad choice every time. And it feels like 2025 or late 2024 and 2025 so far has been like, oh, we're making the bad choice every time. Okay. All right.
And we've got the same formula, the same run-ins, the same things. It all looks and feels the same. It feels old. That's where it feels old. You want to talk about age, it's the structure. And when you get something like that last night, and you see, like, you know, with Daniels and Hangman, and the structure is so different, and it feels different, and it's like revitalizing, you know?
Yep.
And then we go back to the same running and the same kind of thing, and it's like, this promotion has so much chance to be good. Just let it be good. But that means you have to be stronger.
Especially because there is weakening in WWE. Like there's definitely like some warning signs, and like we talked about with the freaking WrestleMania stuff and the Rock stuff, and like they've got a bunch of veterans coming back, and now they're trying to make a big production out of AEW hires, which is pissing off people in the back more. Like there's things here where it's like you can have an opportunity to take some of that, you know, coolness, quote unquote, back. But instead, you know, well, we have to give all of our TV time to guys whose best years, who were mid-carders during their best years, which were 15 years ago, right? Like, and even Moxley, for all that he's done for AEW, for all that he's like an incredible wrestler and someone who I am just such a huge fan of, like, it's just baffling to look at right now and be like, how do you not see that this is not working? Yeah. Like I get the constant, like, well, you don't understand it. No, I don't understand it. And most of the audience clearly doesn't understand it either, because nobody's thinking this is good.
His words don't match up. You know, when he goes and does interviews this week, he's like, I'm going to prepare everyone for the future, but that's not what you're doing. And it's like, are you thinking this? Oh, I have to say, you know, did you see the images of poor guy on his press run?
Oh, God.
Right. Do you know at Wrestle Kingdom, do you know when Hiromu was walking out in that ridiculous costume? And like,
with a giant smile on his face.
Yeah. And Naito's walking behind him, and he's just like, I've got to look
I want to be dead.
Yeah, I want to be dead. I've got to look after the fucking child again. Where's Bushi? Right?
Yeah.
In this one, it's like the opposite energy. Like, Moxie's that kid that just doesn't want to be up on the stage, doesn't want to clap at the school play. And Renee's like, just smile. Just smile once. And I'm not taking the piss, because it's like, you know, I have a bulldog chewing a wasp face at the best of times, especially at work. But, like, you promoted this, and he was walking around like, I don't want to be here. I want to go back to bed. And it was just the funniest image ever, because it very much was like Hiromu and Naito, and it was just like, here's where we are. Poor guy. I just thought it was hilarious. Look, I followed Moxley around the globe for near enough a decade. Like, over a decade, Jesus. And I have never been so frustrated with what he's doing. And I get the idea behind it. I just think they had an idea going in, they had an idea coming out, and I find it difficult to put the things together. I don't know who has the most influence on the in-between, but it doesn't feel to me like you are trying to achieve this. Maybe it is to try and put Darby over, but I don't think you need to do that. I think the most disappointing for most of us is it feels like I want my spot back. Yeah. And he felt a threat at the start of last year when they put him into the tag division, you know, when they wanted him to be kind of first challenger for Swerve.
And especially with Ospreay coming in and Okada coming in. And
and then you've got like Tony tweeting 2024 is going to be the new 2021, which again shows how he misjudges the audience by thinking it was all about the debuts. He rewrites his own history on that and forgets like April to July ever existed. And that's that thing. So,
and Mox has watched Tony fall out of love with a lot of guys, and has watched Tony, you know, slot guys into those spots, like we talked about with Private Party, like we talked about with other people. He slots somebody in a spot, and that's it, and you're done, right? And I'm sure that has to be terrifying to look at that and be like, Jesus Christ, you know. And, you know, we've talked about the fallout from all the Punk bullshit. That has to be a factor in that too.
Of course it is. All of this plays a part. You know, everything of that plays a part, and how he felt, and, you know, the people that went to Tony and said, you know, don't do this, and then were ignored. All of that plays into this. This is years and years of things that have built up that we're now seeing manifesting on screen, and that's the big difference. So you can talk about what's been said behind, you can talk about the way that weekly booking works or anything like that, but the problem is it's on the screen now.
Yeah.
And it's on the screen. You know, we're not seeing so many of these great promos in ring, because, and especially now that, you know, mic time is so fought over, and you only get certain people who have that control. you're not seeing these things. You're not seeing that work going in. You're seeing people who are putting in the work, and then it has no follow-up and no momentum, and the fans notice this, the people notice that, and that's where they're getting into, they are with the numbers. And they are protected by having this TV deal. You know, but you are still going to see that as long as we kind of get out, even until you get out of this cycle. They're falling into that, and it's all kind of correlates back to that. It does. Everything with Moxley correlates back to that. Everything with not taking other opportunities correlates back to that. You know, that pay-per-view at Double Nothing 2021 where you had like O'Reilly went over, was it O'Reilly that went over Darby
22.
Allin? 22, sorry, 2022.
That's all right.
Where O'Reilly went over Darby Allin. You had the Hardys go over the Young Bucks.
Yep.
And you had Punk go over Hangman in the main event.
Yep.
And it was like the complete twist of that energy of 2021 where you had like Jungle Boy win the Casino Battle Royal where you expected Christian, and you had like the Adam Page stuff at the very start, and you had, you know, Britt Baker finally winning the kind of the women's title, and then Orange Cassidy and Pac in that way, and then Stadium Stampede. The whole energy changed. It flipped. That's what happened in 2021. It wasn't the injuries. It was that. But until you continue this misjudgment, and we saw this at the press conference for All In, you know, that misjudging of the audience. So again, it was just like, you know, Bryan Danielson's the heart and soul of this company. Where's a lot of part of this fan base that doesn't believe that? There's a lot of part of your talent that doesn't believe that. You know, it's not they don't respect him, but they don't see him as the embodiment of AEW, and that's where we get this misjudgment, and that is what we'll continue to see. That's what we're seeing on air. You know, when you look at Jeff Jarrett or kind of Copeland in the spot, for us the question is, who is this for? Because it's not for us.
No.
This isn't All Elite Wrestling. Who is this for?
No.
And to Tony and to these guys, you know, when he's wondering, like, why are we not hot? Because he thinks we should be. And he blames Twitter and he blames WWE. But that's not the answer. The answer is, this is not for your audience. You aren't serving your actual audience who are the biggest parts of it. You're serving what you think it is. And the fact that you think it is quite scary.
Like, do you think your audience cares about Cope and FTR? They don't give a fuck. Like, do you think your audience cares about the Hurt Syndicate? Like, some of them do, and they think it's cool and whatever, but like, you know, no. Like, this is the part where it's just kind of like, do you think your audience, like listen to what people have been saying. Like, they, you know, again, we've talked about Hangman ad infinitum, right? But like, you see what people are talking about when they were angry about that match announcement last week, right? Why is this shit happening when guys like Swerve and Ospreay and Hangman, and again, we talk about Ospreay's going to be fine and whatever, but it's not like he's lighting the world on fire right now. They've stuck him in a mid-card program, right? Kyle Fletcher had an absolute fantastic run, phenomenal matches, great effort, and, you know, he hasn't spoken. He's going to probably be in a tag match. Like, there's no future for Fletcher, right? How many heels are clogging up the main event scene?
You have got stuff coming in from the other side now. So you've got little things that WWE are doing and New Japan that are going to put different threats to you, right? So you've got this TNA WWE relationship, which believed to be 3 years or over. And the whole idea behind that, for me, is that you can create this kind of pincer movement, right? So not only for TNA's perspective, you know, they go to per appearance deals in 2 weeks in February. So having NXT talent
with their contract,
with their contract. So that helps to fill the gap. They get the short-term boost, you know, for maybe numbers for like Genesis tonight. They get little appearances here and there, and they may get a live ticket boost, especially when you're running UBS and you're running, are they running LA? Is that the other market? I'm pretty sure it's the other market. Yeah. So you've got big markets to run as well, but they are then able to run markets and run venues like the Curtis Caldwell Center in Garland, Texas tonight that are AEW markets, right?
Yes.
So you are running AEW venues, and therefore, when, you know, what's that fan going to do? So if you say, you know, WWE's in Dallas tomorrow night for Raw, say the tickets are like $200, right? Are you gonna, and you say you don't want to, you can't pay out for that. And then you now have a choice. So now, not only, you know, is AEW there, but now there's TNA, and they might have NXT wrestlers, and hey, could there be WWE main roster wrestlers there? All of a sudden, there's more competition. And it's that little thing about market share. So I know everyone talks about antitrust, and yes, absolutely. This is WWE being able to manage their antitrust by saying they're in a partnership with someone and not trying to buy them out. It protects them in a way that UFC weren't protected against. that is absolutely going to be something and it then protects them against, but it also protects them against the moves they can make to reduce AEW's market share. So you can reduce AEW's market share in these markets by having TNA being in these buildings and being in buildings that are associated in some ways in the last few years with AEW. And then you can continue to do that. So you can run pay-per-views or PLEs, on Endeavor, because TNA are actually on in Endeavor is their platform that hosts their pay-per-view events. That was always an important note. But you can run them on these weekends, and then you take that attention away. And that's something else that can go against Collision, if it stays on Saturdays, and kind of keep that kind of impact. So you have all these little things, and it's the same with market share, and it's the same thing. So you do that with NXT. NXT is going to start doing live shows. They're going to do one next month looking like from Full Sail. It's the same thing. You're doing everything to take the press, and then you can get away with like what you're doing with Saturday Night Main Event putting opposite All In as, it's not direct competition. We just need to do that with we're just doing that with NBC, but hey, look at all these great partnerships we're doing. Look how much talent's sharing with that. Look how we're giving this pathway that wrestlers not only can just come to the performance center, but they can actually go and get TV experience and that week-to-week experience without signing for us. We're widening that platform, that way, and that entrance way. We're giving people the opportunity when they come out of WWE, they can actually fall back into TNA, and hopefully they can do like a Drew McIntyre and go back. There are so many ways that they can now defend themselves against antitrust allegations, but also impact on AEW's business. Even if it's only slight things, even if it's only to do with press or it's to do with kind of marketing or those little things, but we know how important perception is. And we've seen this absolute massive movement amongst the kind of WWE affiliated kind of media this week to talk about TNA being a possible number two. Right. Even though it can't touch them on pay-per-views, even though on Access TV, it's lucky if it hits a 0.01, at the best of times. It doesn't matter because it's all about perception, and that's what they're targeting. And then it doesn't help when AEW go and shoot themselves in the foot, whether it be the talent that's on screen or whether it be things like the Australia show, which is a organisational mess that we'll talk about once we get to the end of it because we can then kind of assess whatever happened. But a current looks a mess. You are giving them that opportunity and they can cover their own backs with it. Long term, will it benefit TNA? No, of course it won't. None of these relationships ever do. No. But for WWE, it's another little clever step in putting more pressure on AEW, who are making their own mistakes in their own environment, and it protects WWE from any sort of comeback. So that deal is quite a clever deal to me, in that sort of aspect. We'll see what they do with it tonight. They've got Genesis tonight. I'm sure they're going to try and make a big impact with that. God, that was a really bad, unnecessary pun.
I know. I didn't want to call it out, but I was like, good Lord. I groaned a little bit.
I'm sorry. I didn't intend that one too. That's even worse, isn't it? They're doing the thing where they've got JBL on the show tonight, and he's on commentary on Raw tomorrow night.
Posting about it on Instagram
too. And it's all about perception, and they've got them, claiming number two company, and also like AEW never promoted it when it was like Kenny Omega was there, and it's like you can go back. We did an episode on that. We don't need to rehash that. Yeah. But so you've got that on one side. And then you've got the pressure of WWE doing their big events, their big destination kind of shows and that sort of thing. And then this year you've got all the attention and the media attention that's going to be on, John Cena and whatever goes on with The Rock and everything else. And then you now have to think about, and I always thought that this could be a possibility, what happens if New Japan come up on the other side? So this is someone you are in partnership with, but has attractions to your wrestlers and has attractions to your fan base, and it was one of the original launching points for a lot of your fan base to get into this promotion. And then we saw some of that kind of vocalization, I think, coming out of Wrestle Dynasty and out of Wrestle Kingdom last week. I think that's what fed into what happened with the whole graphic thing. And that's a breaker. That's not about, this match was like the worst thing in the world and that's why it sparked it. That's like when, WWE in the 2010s is, I bet if you ask like hundreds of people why they stopped watching WWE, everyone would have a different reason.
Yes.
Right? There's a different breaking point. That was just a breaking point. But I think that was brought on as well by the presentation and what New Japan were doing with AEW talent. And, New Japan can be smart with this. I thought, when I listened to Super J-Cast summary, everyone wanted to listen to the Chris Chart and stuff. But I actually thought the most interesting thing that they talked about was the opportunity for New Japan to be a home to talent who were feeling disgruntled in AEW, who could then help their business go forward, could help them develop their young talent. You know, in the same way that Kenny Omega has gone over and given that lift to Will Ospreay and now given that lift to Gabe Kidd.
Right.
So there is an opportunity for them. And this year they are set up quite well. You know, even, you know, the Goto Challenge in Osaka is going to sell out the building. Go to the show. How many Goto? Have you got any Goto puns? You doing a Goto pun?
Hiroki go to the polls. That's about all I can do.
That's it.
That's my best one.
Right, but by the time New Beginning comes around, we need at least, like, you know, go
4.
to the title, you know, go to the, you know, I don't know, come on.
Go to the pub.
Go to the pub. Yeah, well, we take Goto to the pub. When next time you're over here, Goto, and to the UK, I'm going to take you to the pub. There you go. Anyway, I've completely got off my thing. But there's an opportunity there for New Japan to kind of capitalise on that. And if that fan base starts to gravitate back towards New Japan because of that presentation being so vastly different now from what you can see sometimes on TV and AEW, not so much pay-per-view, but definitely on TV.
Oh, definitely on TV.
Then that could be something for them. And you can have this thing that's in your relationship, you know, it's your partner promotion, but they could take part of your fan base off from that other side, that side that you don't always kind of, you don't kind of account for so well. You kind of take advantage, or not advantage, but you kind of feel comfortable with, they'll never go anywhere. But that is the side where they could go.
Well, especially if you're, you know, we talk about like the in-match storytelling becoming less interesting, right, on the television. That's something New Japan has always been better at, right?
Yeah, and they've recognised some of their ills. So you've got, you know, you put Naito into the tag division. We've got the Bucks going to do Osaka, which I think is quite a big thing. You know, it teaches the audience as well. It's not going to be a repeat of like Kenny's US title run, but
Right.
he doesn't go back to Japan. But also, and I was talking to someone about this the other day, and I thought it was quite interesting. The guys fighting for the top spot are all young now.
Right.
There's no, you know, old guard kind of in that spot. Yeah, if you're going to do something with Goto, it's just going to be a transition run. But you are looking at, you know, Tsuji fighting for the top spot. You're looking at Shota Umino, who had Liger come out and try and defend him at the Dome. Remember when we said that people were saying their match was fine at the Dome to them?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Here's a good opportunity of one. So, a good explanation of one. So you've got people kind of fighting. So Tsuji, Umino, Kid, you know, I believe he's re-signed again for this year. And then you've got, you know, to potentially be going to have Takeshita coming in as a part-time at this point, but looking at full-time at some point. So these are the guys fighting for this spot now. There's not an Okada fighting for this spot now and trying to keep it, or trying to keep it at the top. Goto is not going to look at it and go, you know what, I'm going to keep the belt for the whole year if I get it. No, the idea would be to, like, then literally put someone over. You've got someone like Finlay who's, you know, putting in some of the best work of his career that can justify himself at that spot as well. So you've got these young guys all fighting for that spot, and it's such a healthier position to be in than having all these old guys containing the spots and these young guys having to sit underneath and not feeling anything. Because these guys are competitive, they're hungry, and they've got the opportunity to do so. They've got something to chase. I think that's such a powerful thing. And how many of these businesses turn around because they've got something to chase? And it's difficult. You know, the yen is difficult. There isn't many pay rises or any pay rises to be had by the look of it in New Japan this year. That is a situation that may restrict them going forward. But then I look at what they've got this year, and I look at their calendar, and, you know, they're running Ariake Arena for the finals of the G1, which is a much, much bigger venue than Ryogoku or the Budokan. And then I look at, you know, you get to that single night Wrestle Kingdom next year with Tanahashi will fill that place because it's Tanahashi.
Yes.
He's the most popular wrestler they've had for decades. You know, he's the most popular wrestler than Muto. Muto was a weeknight in February. And he was working for Noah where, you know, they were 1,000 kind of max on attendance. And so it's a different world. Like, that will fill that venue. So that's going to carry their numbers for this year. So you have the opportunity for these young guys just to be given a shot, you know? And you can step Shota Umino back because you've got these other guys coming in. And if you bring someone in like Takeshita, that gives you kind of enormous credibility on the Western side of things as well in terms of match quality.
Yes.
And so there is an element of, they have to be careful of that flank as well. And maybe that's something they didn't think they'd need to be. But I do think they do. I think, you know, if you get too much of a kind of flow that way, people will see it, have eyes there. And it's so cheap to go to Japan for that experience that becomes the destination show for this year. You're hearing people talk about it now. We're hearing people talk about going just as much to Wrestle Kingdom next year as we are to All In. And,
well, I think, you talked about this. If you have fans if you have Tony Khan who believes that the reason why people loved All Elite Wrestling was Punk and Danielson and Adam Cole, right? Then, there's really, what opportunity is there to figure out that that's not the case, right?
Yeah.
You're sort of like, I don't know, like you're kind of stuck, right? Because we're going to keep going back to that ex-WWE well, right? Which I hate saying because it's not about ex-WWE, right? That's not, or overexposed, I guess is the best way we keep saying that, but it makes me think of people not wearing pants.
That's the level where we've got to at the end. And, and there is opportunity, because you look at what WWE do. You look at that Rock return on the Netflix debut, and you literally had him come back and destroy a ton of storylines just like that. And no one blinked an eyelid. No one said anything. And it's like, no, these things will damage you. You might not feel it now because they're hot and all these things, but it will damage you. So you have the opportunity there. And, it's funny. There's a really funny thing, I think, that's been exposed by this kind of Netflix and the Max debut as well, of people really wanting to chase these numbers, try and figure out where these companies are, and not wanting to wait until we kind of have more clarity.
That's making me nuts right now. I'm struggling with a lot of this. Like, just be like, we don't know. We don't know. We're getting a lot of conflicting numbers. We don't know. They could be doing great. They could be doing okay. They could be doing poorly. We are completely in the fucking dark right now.
Yeah, we know nothing. We absolutely know nothing in terms of the actual performance. I think Dave's pointed out that they're saying that they've had some kind of big ticket uplifts just for Raw, and that could be a Netflix impact. If that continues, then absolutely it could be. But we're still in that thing where the kind of data set is very kind of small, and we need to kind of get a feel of it. So then you've got people looking at TV pay-per-view data, and Dave likes to kind of take the TV number now, and he's using that as like full analysis, which is kind of driving me insane a little bit as well.
As an analysis, it's a bad call, because I have said this before. I do not believe that you can say that the people who purchase pay-per-views through their cable television are the same people who would purchase a streaming pay-per-view through a streaming service on their Roku TV. They're two different people. I suspect their ages are very different. And to be able to extrapolate the behavior of one from the behavior of the other, I think it's just sloppy. It lends to a lot of potential problems.
Well, you can't do that. And, and then you're looking at different time periods. So saying something like the statement of World's End did better than Full Gear, Wrestle Dream, or All Out, or was the biggest pay-per-view since August. Well, guess what? World's End was the biggest pay-per-view since August last year too, because it's World's End, and it has the C2, and it's in that holiday window. Right. So all these things are context. We don't compare Backlash to WrestleMania numbers, No. It's daft. So actually, when you look at it, if you take the bare estimates, and Brandon Thurston did this from Dave's kind of numbers, and I know this is a challenge for everybody, not just for Brandon. It's like, okay, so which are the two pay-per-views this year last year that the company said had actually gone up? And they said Revolution, and they said All Out. So theoretically, on like for like, they are the two most successful pay-per-views.
Yes.
But we don't see it that way. So we're talking about World's End being more successful than All Out, but in relative and context, it's not that case. So if World's End did 115k, then it would be down from last year's 141,000 quite significantly. So, which would be a drop, what was that? A drop of 18%. So we're saying that a pay-per-view that dropped 18% in like-for-like is more successful than a pay-per-view that gained 5%. Like, this is the thing. So because we have so little access to data, we're scrambling with numbers that are actually kind of incomplete, and that's without looking at the way that BR Live dropped off the map at WrestleDream. Right. So there's too much incomplete stuff, and it's the same with the Netflix and with the Mac stuff. It looks like the quarter hours have really not kind of changed their kind of pattern, and some of that will be that they had a very low 18 to 34 number already. And that's probably the most, looking at other kind of programming, especially the NFL on Netflix at Christmas, that's the most likely demos that would be picked up by Max. And so it's very hard to tell. But what I do think is correct when it comes to Max in particular is that I don't think at the current time you're probably getting a huge amount of new fans, mainly because of the way it's been marketed. So it's not on the front page.
Nope.
You're not seeing this big, huge rollout in the same way that you saw with Netflix with Raw. So you aren't going to get that. What you're probably seeing is a transition across from people who are watching on cable television onto Max, and we'll see more of that. So it's probably still the same audience. If you're going to see growth in this audience, you're going to see it in the same bits. And at the moment, the most reliable numbers are going to be the live numbers.
Yes.
And even if you're running smaller venues, so you're running smaller venues, but if you are starting to grow and that demand is growing, we should see them sell out before we get to, the day of the show. And then you go from there. And then we'll start to see growth. We're not seeing that growth at the moment. And that are still the most reliable numbers. And especially in this kind of period where we're getting kind of disinformation, or you're getting kind of, you're trying to extrapolate what does Netflix views actually mean, how long is it going for, then they are going to be the numbers that we keep coming back to. And I've seen it this way, we're seeing it with the Death Rider stuff, people are kind of going into YouTube now, right, or Instagram, and yes, Instagram could mean something, but none of these numbers mean anything in situ. I've never seen a program that has spiked YouTube numbers or spiked Instagram numbers that hasn't spiked merchandise or hasn't spiked ticketing or hasn't spiked caller hours or ratings.
Right.
It doesn't exist. And if you look at it, so you can look at, they've got the correlation between strong YouTube numbers and strong programs is probably the weakest in AEW of any promotion that I've ever seen. So, for example, take the Acclaimed, right? The Acclaimed, we spotted that one through merchandise, but we also spotted it through quarter hour, especially on Rampage. All of a sudden, Rampage took a tick up, and there were some ridiculous quarter hours for them and growth that you could see as a pattern. Did it show on YouTube? No. Can over 100K, right? Didn't matter. They were hugely successful. They got the belts at Grand Slam. They had great last ticket sales. I'm pretty sure that was the highest quarter of that show. In fact, it was, yeah. The highest quarter of Grand Slam on 2022 wasn't the Moxley Danielson World Title match. It was the Acclaimed. That was the biggest growth quarter. So you can see that evidence in actual metrics, in things that matter. It didn't make an impact on your YouTube. Does that matter? No, because it made money. It sold a ton of merch. They sold a ton of merch that I think they would die to sell these days with anybody, to be quite honest with you, right? It's the same thing. Paige and Omega. Did that do huge YouTube numbers in July of 2021? No. I think the 5v5 that hit 0.7 the demo in minute by minutes, I think that did 400 and something K. Does it matter? No. Did it sell out all out? Yes. Did it sell 16K? Did it help to sell 16K first weekend of Grand Slam? A number that gets acquainted for everybody else, apparently. Yes. Did it set the biggest Charlotte number they've done? Yes. Did it sell a huge kind of uptick last 2 weeks for the Charlotte show, for the Philadelphia show? Yes. Did it do a huge amount of pay-per-view buys of 85% more than the previous year at Full Gear? Yes. Do you see what I'm getting at here? Like, why are we trying to use this number to justify anything? We have seen ones, though, where YouTube has actually indicated great growth or indicated something else that could be going on, and then it has shown up on TV. So Jungle Boy and Hook, that tag team, should have run longer, right?
Yes.
Showed up on the Shorts numbers, showed up on the YouTube numbers, showed up on Instagram numbers, all of a sudden it's in your quarter hours. There is no such thing as a hot program that just exists on YouTube. If you're just going to throw YouTube data at me or Instagram data at me, just fuck off. I don't want it. It doesn't mean anything until anything like that will show in the metrics. If you have a hot program, it shows in the metrics. Adam Copeland is the worst guy you should ever use for that. Comes back at Royal Rumble in 2020, 37 million viewers. Does it mean anything for WWE? No. He wins the Royal Rumble in 2021. He goes on NXT. It does 1.3 million views and 1.2 million views for the two segments. What does the show do? It does a 0.15 to AEW's 0.32. What did these YouTube numbers mean? That was a disaster rating. They've called it devastating. He ended up in a freeway after being due a one-on-one match at WrestleMania. Like, they don't mean anything. You can look for them. If you're looking for signs, great. But then you need to look for the numbers. And if you are looking for things like that, then you're already fucking up. And there's too many people in these companies, and there's too many wrestlers that rely on YouTube numbers or things like that. And it's pointless. Like, what are you achieving? You're achieving nothing by that. Go Give me some real number data. But tickets are going to be the one now. I've got off my point because I got into a rant, but tickets are going to be the one bit of data now that we are going to look for trends, because that is the most reliable data that we've got. And now, yeah, we're in complete misinformation with Netflix and that sort of thing. What did you think of some of the feedback around the Netflix debut?
It was interesting. The casual fan places that I go to for WWE were uniformly negative about it. They were very upset that there were all these old guys out there. They were upset that they had people like Cody, I think Tiffany Stratton too, just sitting in the audience. They were like, why aren't these people on TV? Why am I looking at The Undertaker? Why am I looking at The Rock? Why is Hulk Hogan out there? So, that was I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, again, there's that sense of like, well, let's go back to nostalgia. Maybe nostalgia isn't selling, but it seems like people have been were happier with this last week's episode, that they got back to the way that they're regularly doing stuff.
Yeah, look, they have an opportunity there, and it could turn into something. Is it a destination show, or is it just a one-off? That's the big question coming up. And for me, I think that probably one of the most interesting things is they've just ruined satire completely now. I'm dead. Like, I can't make jokes about Triple H being behind a curtain because he's always in every opening spot and takes like kind of all them spots, and then he is behind a curtain. It's just like making political jokes at the moment. It's just ruined. Like, we have nothing left. But no, that was a kind of a funny little political play, wasn't it? He opened the show, and then you had The Rock, and who destroyed all the programs he set up other than Roman, and who could turn up, who could not. But look, they're in a position where I think, to me, their place in the cycle is where AEW were in 2022, the start of 2022.
Yeah, I
where
agree.
they can put these big matchups on, but you're already starting to see some of the cracks. So you are seeing some slowdown in live ticketing. Obviously, they're showing some signs for Raw, but in general, they had to slow down. You're going to get this little pickup because you're going to do big programs. It's their big part of the year. And you're going to become more reliant on international kind of numbers to keep you up. But if you become over-reliant on your nostalgia, especially because you are going to do probably a Cena title run this year, then what are you going to come out with at the end? What's Drew McIntyre doing after his kind of career year last year? What's going to happen there? What's going to happen with some of your women's division? It's that sort of thing. So where do you end up at the end of this year for WWE is probably a bigger question where they start. People
make a lot of fun of Seth Rollins, but their fans like him.
Yeah.
And he gets pushed down, right? I can't remember which Uso is the Yeet Uso, but
Jay.
their fans like him.
Jay is the Yeet Uso. We're going to get that gimmick. We're going to get that graphic back again of Yeeting Uso again. Do you remember the one we got?
Yeeting Uso?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. But I guess I just feel like there's, I look at some of this. So Penta debuted on Monday on Raw. Terrible music, but the rest of it was great. The audience seemed to love him. Yes, there was some piped in stuff, but for the most part, and nobody knew what Cero Miedo was like at all. He kept doing it, and nobody was doing it. And I was like, "Oh, Penta, you got some work to do."
They'll get George Kittle in. They'll
figure it out. Yeah. But I thought what was interesting was that immediately after the debut, we had Mike Johnson at PW Pro Wrestling Insider talking about how people backstage were angry that Penta went over his time and were upset that their time was cut. And then it got walked back. Well, people weren't upset that their time was cut. They were going to miss flights, blah, 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 blah. But the fact that it got leaked in the first place was fascinating to me because it suggests, and there was some other stuff that's made sort of the circuit the last day or two about, basically WWE wrestlers being upset that AEW wrestlers who got hired are sort of walking into these big, welcomes when they have had to grind and grind and grind to get to the spots that they're in or spots that they're not in.
Do you not think that it's like the exact dynamic that there was with AEW in 2022?
Oh no, it's there.
Because it's like NXT, when they had these NXT guys coming in and getting bigger spots than the originals that beat NXT. And WWE have that advantage over AEW now. It's literally the same dynamic.
Yep. And I feel like that's one of those things where, people can walk that back all they want to, but that shit doesn't come out like that unless somebody's pissed. right?
Yeah.
And pissed in the moment. Maybe they regret it later, but and I think it's definitely a fascinating dynamic. And this is part of the frustration leading into like, why the fuck are we watching fucking some of these people on Dynamite that I wish weren't, because you have an opportunity to show something new and different to an audience that might be getting kind of tired of the sort of same stuff they've been seeing over and over again on WWE, because now we're into what, 3 years of Triple H booking?
Yeah.
It's usually the part where people start to notice the patterns and say, hey, this is the same shit we've already seen already. You know, there's a breakup in a faction. Like there's, you know, like that's the kind of stuff that I think, you know, there's some opportunities there, and it's frustrating that AEW doesn't seem to be in a position to take advantage of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. It definitely felt like Penta's whole presentation was like a message.
Yeah, no, it absolutely was, and it definitely caught on, because it was something, one of the first things brought to me when we were talking about kind of some of the, you know, the wrestlers with frustrations. And, you know, there is an important thing to note that it's complicated, right? It's not simple.
Yeah.
It's not everybody feels this way. There will always be people that want a bigger spot. There will always be people that want more. It's just whether, I think the problem that they feel in AEW at the moment is that they aren't given the opportunity to get to that chance. They don't have the shot. And that's the difference between that feeling and the environment in terms of the morale maybe there than it is to New Japan right now.
Right. And it's also worth pointing out that people's feelings change. I can have a feeling in one moment and feel differently in the next moment. Like, that's one of the things that's frustrating sometimes about reporting this stuff, is that you sort of say, well, this is what's kind of going on. But like that, these things do change. People's relationships change. Their interactions change. Their feelings change. Like something is true one day and then is a little bit different the next. So always worth, always worthwhile.
They're more reactive even than we are, you know, wrestlers in general. So they see something like the Penta debut, and they see how much time he got and the promo time he got, and that is attractive. And that is what they want. They want it to be attractive. But they, in a way, like they're doing with this someone like Penta, who, you know, he's going to shift huge merch for them. You know, that's why you sign him. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But you're not targeting Penta with this. And you can bring in a Ricky Starks, and you can bring in a Malachi Black, or whoever else may be going that way. But let's be honest, that's not who they're after. Like, that's just something to get on. They're after the top guys. They're after them guys that are going to be up in 2 to 3 years. And there's a number of them. You know, we know, Max will probably be up around that point. You know, the elite guys will be up around that point.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's going to be a number of others. And that's who you're looking at. You are looking at, because that's when you're going to have that next kind of power vacuum. You know, you've got that power vacuum kind of emerging in New Japan, which will become even more so with Tanahashi going down. I don't think Naito's got that much longer left, and I don't see him staying around for years. Absolutely not. It's not him. And then you're going to have this one in WWE, because John Cena is going to be gone. He is retiring.
Right.
As far as a wrestler has ever retired. But he is retiring. So that's a big cog out of that wheel. And then how long have you got left with The Rock? And then the CM Punk kind of work-shoot tour only worked for so long. Yeah. So that's another one out of the thing. You know, physically, what has Seth Rollins got left? You know, there are going to be vacancies in this power vacuum. And yes, you can fill them internally, but also you can pick up these top guys, and they look at the impact. The thing around WWE is why they'll continue to try and look at doing this, is they look at the impact that Cody got for them.
Right.
And they look at his level and what he achieved, and you look at guys on a similar level who are achieving more in AEW, and you think that can be the next kind of thing that spurs on. So, and I don't think it's easy for, I think it's a lot more, I don't think there's an opportunity for AEW to do that with WWE talent. I don't think there's anybody in WWE that you could bring across that would have, you know, unless you could get, I don't know, if you could get a Roman, maybe that's different, or a Becky Lynch, whatever, because of the numbers that they bring in, but that's unrealistic. You can't do it.
You're not bringing in a Braun Breaker. You're not bringing in a fucking Austin Theory or a Tiffany Stratton or somebody like that. They're not making a difference. They're not people that the AEW audience cares about.
No, and, you know, names are names, but they don't do anything. You know, we saw that with TNA in 2010s. You know, you can bring Hulk Hogan, you can bring Mick Foley. It don't mean shit.
We saw it with Okada and Ospreay and Monet this year. Yeah. They didn't do a lot for you.
No, so for them, I don't think there's anyone you can bring in from WWE that change your business. I think if you keep just being reliant on free agents and that sort of thing and that football mentality, I don't think it works. The only way that they get back on terms, not even like on terms, but in terms of their own growth, is by building from within. and recognizing what they have.
Right.
The free agent stuff, it's playing retirement home or playing the home of people that want to do whatever they couldn't do under Vince, but aren't actually that interested in kind of building AEW. It's not going to cut it. You have to go back to a Vince. And, this might be 2 hours of just saying that, but actually, we just needed to say it. I think we need to just get this all off our chest, because this has been building for so long now, and we've gone through so much of this, and we've watched it, and we've seen it coming, and then it happens, and it drives us insane, because we have so much kind of faith in what this thing could be. We want All Elite Wrestling. I don't need something else. Like, that's what we want to see. Like, not whatever this is. Yeah. All right.
I feel like that's a good spot for us to finish this week.
Yeah. Man United won 4-2, actually. Beat Man City. Yay. I'm very excited.
Nice job.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I got so distracted. I'm so sorry. Tooney's on fire. Tooney hat trick. Yay. Right, there you go. There's your football update from the world of women's football today. There you go. Don't say I don't give you... That's like double coverage. That's almost like journalism, isn't it? So this has been Trish and Sarah Address Their Enemies version of the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Yes, this week I might not be underwater, so instead you've got the full-blown version. I bet you wanted the underwater version now. We are proud members of the Social Suplex Podcasting Network. You can hear all their great podcasts over at www.socialsuplex.com or on Red Circle or whatever provider of podcasts that you listen to. Check out the likes of One Nation Radio, Wrestling Art with Chris Things, All Things Elite, ONR, Keeping It Strong Style, and our infamous partners in Tunnel Talk, who may have no episode this week, but did appear on the match guide with Sam to talk about the wonderful Arcade Anarchy match, including that great thing with Penelope Ford's lipstick on the glass.
Yes, and some interesting interpretations of the relationships between the different characters in the lead up to this feud.
And we got a great mention. We got mentions of Charles Butler. We got mentions of Miro doing What Is Love, which is a great fun little Dynamite
Don't
moment.
hurt me.
Don't hurt me.
Baby, don't hurt me.
Maybe that's the song for this episode. But yeah, no. So listen to if you have a moment, if you want a break from all this kind of analysis of what's going on in AEW at the moment, you want to listen to something fun, go and listen to Tunnel Talk on the AEW Match Guide, talking about Arcade Anarchy in 2021. You can also support the shows or just get a really cool piece of merch at www.chopped-tees/Trish and Sarah. British version, you get the American version to open, you get the British version to close. And, they're great pieces of merch. I took my my fleece with me to the Tokyo Dome, and our friend Tim Hunter was wearing the Tunnel Talk fleece all day on Sunday of Wrestle Dynasty. So Tunnel Talk in the Tokyo Dome, not just getting Mac Jackson's shirt off, they also were well represented there in other ways. You can contact us. You can contact us at Trish and Sarah on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. You can also email us at trishandsarahpod@gmail.com, trishandsarahpod@gmail.com. Find us also on Blue Sky under our own names, because Blue Sky is still dead. Yeah, I'm looking at you on this one.
I got the solution, but I'm having trouble implementing it because I can't remember what the password is.
I thought we still stuck on the password.
And I can't reset the password because the email is wrong. The struggle is...
No, it's amazing, right? Because it's like, people are like, oh yeah, like, you do a really great job technically. And I'm like, I do an awful job technically. And
you do an awful job technically. This is my technical error.
But you can contact us on all those sites if you have any questions, anything that you want to raise. I feel like we might even do a mailbag episode at some point when we get that many questions now.
We should.
What's so bad? We actually should. We should just do a mailbag thing at some point. But no, we if you stuck with us to this point in the episode, we thank you for listening. We just wanted to kind of get, I think, a lot of our chests and go through kind of all the kind of frustrations that we have at the moment. I think we'll be back next time with more of a regular kind of episode.
Yes. More positive, I think.
I hope so. I do hope so. There are things I'm looking forward to this year. I'm definitely looking forward to New Beginning. I'm very excited for that New Beginning.
Yes.
We're going to try and rope you into more New Japan this year.
I'm going to watch that. You know,
Absolutely.
that sounds like a fantastic match.
Cool. Yeah. So until then, I've been Trish.
I've been Sarah.
And this has been the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast.
Wow.
What's up?
I just bought and financed a car through Carvana in minutes.
You? The person who agonized 4 weeks over whether to paint your walls eggshell or off-white bought and financed a car in minutes?
They made it easy. Transparent terms, customizable down and monthly. Didn't even have to do any paperwork.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Hey, have you checked out that spreadsheet I sent you for our dinner options?
Finance your car with Carvana and experience total control. Financing subject to credit approval.